Hey guys, Jim Vinosky with Manufacturing Talks. Welcome back to the show. Another good one for you today. I've got Clare Epstein. She's with a company called Vector Solutions, and they do a lot of different things. But one thing is they do training for worker safety and talk about nothing bigger as a topic of concern. I know all of you in manufacturing have that top of mind. Claire's here to talk about a new study they have that gives some new insights into what's going on with worker safety and some ways to attack it, and her company provides solutions. So she's here to talk about those as well. Lots of good stuff for our manufacturing folks and really for anyone. We all got to keep our people safe. Claire is here to tell us how to do that in just a minute. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vinosky, your host. Very happy today to be joined by Clare Epstein. She's the general manager of the commercial business sector at Vector Solutions. Welcome, Clare.
Thank you, Jim, for having me. Super excited about this opportunity to talk about Vector Solutions and the research study that we just issued that has been getting a lot of attention.
Good. Yeah. Well, and thanks for joining us. I mean, this is getting into a topic that all of us in manufacturing have to pretty much constantly have front and center, right? Worker safety.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So before we get into that, though, why don't you just tell the audience about yourself and about Vector Solutions?
Okay. So I'll start with Vector Solutions first, and then I'll transition to me. Vector
Okay.
Solutions is a e-learning and operational software provider. We offer over 3,000 courses to our commercial sector, which has a very strong focus on industrial manufacturing. And for our industrial manufacturing customers, in addition to offering some of the general health and safety courses and career development courses that are very popular, we also offer very, very specific industrial skills courses. So how to use a specific piece of machinery, what a pump or a valve is, a lot of things that I actually am not very familiar with myself, but I know really resonates with our industrial manufacturing audience. And then we also offer an operational software called Vector EHS, which is an environmental health and safety software, which allows our customers to keep track of their safety data, including incidents and OSHA record keeping and safety inspections. And that obviously resonates with our industrial manufacturer customers as well.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, you guys cover a lot of ground. We're here to talk to talk worker safety.
Yes.
Obviously, go ahead.
Go on. I was going to say that is a good segue for me to talk a little bit about my background.
Yeah, please do.
Because I actually came to Vector the first time around through the acquisition of the product that is called Vector EHS, which previously was called Industry Save. So I have spent really the majority of my career dealing with issues of safety, safety data, technology, how to get that implemented and work in a manufacturing environment. So this is a topic I'm certainly super interested and super passionate about.
Well, excellent, because again, everyone out there in the manufacturing world obviously needs to be thinking about this. It's something that's been around for a long time. Obviously, there's huge amount of ground to cover under it. So to start off, just kind of currently, what do you see as the top 2 or 3 big issues out there today?
Yeah, it's you're talking specifically when it comes to worker safety in the manufacturing space. Yeah. So we see a couple of things. One, this is across manufacturing and a bunch of other sectors, is heat stress. And this is because the world is warming. We have had last year was the, I think, hottest record, warmest temperature on record. And I think this year is promising the same. And so you have now more workers exposed to extreme heat conditions, both indoors and outdoors, which does affect manufacturing workers, both that indoor and outdoor environment. And there's a lot it's an area where training is particularly effective as well, training workers to recognize the signs of heat stress and heat cause. And also it's really resonating because OSHA is looking at it as well. They're actively revisiting and looking at heat stress, either doing some sort of regulation or notice of proposed rulemaking. So I would say that's one that definitely resonates with us. It resonated so much that we updated our heat stress courses, and we actually came out with a case study that deals specifically with heat stress safety. It's available to look at and preview on our website as well. So I would definitely put the heat in one category. The other couple of trends that I think I'm seeing is there is, I think, an increased focus on substance abuse and mental health. This is something I think, again, a lot of the safety stuff carries over from trends you see in the larger society. But there's definitely been more attention on mental health and awareness and substance abuse recently, and just how it can impact the safety of manufacturing workers. So I would say that's probably second. And then I would say the third, I don't know if it's so much directly related to worker safety, but certainly training, is making sure you are balanced with all the soft skills you need in the workplace, right? So you really have to be able to communicate, and making sure that the frontline workers, managers, and supervisors also have those additional soft skills that they need to make sure the organization is safe.
Got it. Yep. So, clearly in an ideal world, this is something that we would all care about just because we care for our people, right? But there are additional reasons to be focused on worker safety. There's real risks to a company. Can you talk a little bit about that? If folks don't get the worker safety part of the business right?
So I do think there's some risks that have been with us for a long time, and then I think there's some risks that have, I think, come up to the forefront as the workforce has changed. So to talk about sort of the traditional bucket of risk, I think when people are looking at safety, they are concerned about the cost of worker injury or incident, right? If someone gets injured on the job, I think the average cost these days in just medical expenses, workers' comp claims, last time is around $40,000 a year. So obviously doing some safety prevention really, really cares for that. And then any additional liability and legal risk that monetary risk you might have by not having a safe environment. I think that's something that's been top of mind for a while. I think some of the trends that we're seeing, I would say over the last 5 to 10 years, is really the focus on hiring and retention risk, right? One of the things that came out in the research study is how important safety is to attracting workers and making sure workers stay. It was the number 2 reason right after pay in our survey that manufacturing workers felt was important to them. And then I think it also can accelerate, in addition to the shortage of hiring and retention that we see, there's definitely a skills gap with older workers retiring. So if an older worker, someone who's close to retirement, is feeling the environment isn't safe, that's going to be a signal to exit. And I think there was a percentage, don't have it off the top of my head, but I think about 30% of workers were like, yeah, who were at that age would consider leaving because of it. So I think the hiring and retention piece is a little bit more in the forefront. I think the monetary costs, the legal compliance risk has always been there and will continue to be there.
Yep. Now, obviously, what you described with Vector Solutions, you're here to help, right?
Exactly.
How do you? Oh, go ahead.
I was just pausing. So go on.
I was just going to ask, how do you make sure that what you bring to the table is effective?
So there's lots of different ways to measure effectiveness, and it's something obviously that we look at an organization in different ways. And I think the easiest measure of effectiveness, not necessarily the best, but in terms of when it comes to safety, is just making sure that the training we put out matches the compliance and regulatory component, right? So OSHA mandates you have to have X amount of training. Sometimes they mandate very specific training, such as your OSHA 10 or OSHA 30 for general industry. So I think at the very bottom line of this, pyramid of effectiveness, as you will, is that the training has to comply with the regulatory requirements,
Yep.
and make sure that's one. The second part of that, and also complying, is sometimes we do, and this came out in the survey a lot, that 50%, I think it was 50% of non-native English speakers did not feel that they were being provided training in their native language, right? So I think the second part, and OSHA really requires that a lot of the safety communication be accessible to people. It doesn't necessarily say it has to be in their native language, but it has to be in a way that they understand, right?
Right.
And so oftentimes that does mean translating materials, and that's something that also we at Vector spend a lot of time on, making sure that we have the translations available for a lot of the safety work that we do, because it's so important to get that message across. So I would say those are two building blocks of effectiveness.
Yep.
And then we do some other things to measure. We do a pre or post assessment on workers' knowledge, right? So before they take the course, they might have a specific skill, and then after they take the course, a specific score, and then after they take the course, hopefully you would see their knowledge increase because of that. And then we also do some qualitative stuff, or some surveys where we actually ask folks, hey, was this course effective? Ultimately, the way you measure effectiveness is does it improve the safety of the workforce and make the workers, safer, smarter, better, which is our mission. It's a little bit hard sometimes to get for us at Vector to get at that data.
Right. Do you find that there's a generational element as well, that you have to tailor things to the new generations coming in?
I think so. I mean, there's a lot of talk about it, just sort of in, the zeitgeist about, like, younger workers want shorter bursts of material, micro learning to be more effective. They're more comfortable taking courses or learning information on their phone. They want video-based learning. They'll be happy to look up YouTube videos on how to do something, for example. So I do think you see those trends, and Vector does, offer that. We have micro learning. We have learning available on mobile devices. And that may not just be generational. Like, again, I think it's really hard for us at Vector to see if our data trends with that. I mean, there are plenty of people my generation who also like videos and watch TikTok, right? So
Right.
I think it's I don't know if it's just generational is what I'm saying, but I think it's certainly the way that we're moving towards, and that's something that we at Vector have to make sure we're adjusting to make sure that the learning is effective.
Yeah, and certainly see the point of that technology has marched on. Are you getting any into AR, VR, that kind of thing?
We try to make we don't do a lot with VR. I think what's interesting about that is that it brings a whole component of having to have like a headset
Mhm.
and the hardware, and making sure that the hardware works. And sometimes employees, even though they have the hardware, actually just go to a desktop or laptop to kind of get that same sort of training, is one of the things
Yeah.
that we found. So we haven't dabbled a lot with the hardware VR part, but what we really try to do is make the learning experience engaging and interactive, and make it as realistic as possible. And sometimes you can do that, just by having like a simulation on a desktop or laptop without actually having, the headset part, if you will.
Yeah, got it. Were there other big trends or themes that came out of the survey?
In terms of the survey, I mean, I think the biggest thing that came out of it, to me personally, and there's just so much good data in it. And so I would encourage anyone listening to the podcast. The report is downloadable. It's free. Definitely take a look, because there's just such good stats in there. But I think the thing that came out to me that most important is, like, actually how important safety and training really is. I think a lot of times as a safety professional in the manufacturing space, you're out there and you're doing your thing, and you have to do it, but like you don't always get you don't always get like feedback like what I'm doing makes a difference. But when you look at that survey, like it is, as I mentioned, right after pay, safety is the number 2 issue facing
Yeah.
workers. And then the other statistic was, and it's crazy. I'm just going to just find it. So make sure I'm saying it right. I have the report printed, and what has happened is now they're all in these like little sheets as I pull
Right.
out stats.
Yep.
Just give me a second here because I am looking for the biggest. Okay, here it is. 100%. So like think of how rare it is that when you do a survey of anyone, that there is 100% of people saying the same thing, right? But 100% of our survey respondents says that safety training is essential for fostering a safe workplace. So I think that is just incredible. And I think what I
Yeah.
took out of the survey, especially if I was someone working in the trenches on safety and training issues, that like what you do matters. The workers, the frontline workers, employees, they notice it and they know.
Yep. And that is heartening because I think one thing we all struggle with is there's a tendency to get complacent, right?
Yep.
So it's good to hear people are focused on that. Are there things that you recommend at Vector to overcome that complacency or deal with that on an ongoing basis?
I think, we obviously, I think that most folks, again, in the trenches sort of recognize this, that like safety is and training is an ongoing experience where you have to constantly do it. You have to constantly update it. And you really can't stop. So you can't just do a training once on whatever it is, and then to be like, okay, now I'm done. Right. And so I think we at Vector recognize that we constantly have to update our training content. We have to come out with new content as new issues arise. We have to mix up the sort of way we deliver the content, right? This idea of micro learning and mobile devices and whatever else is next on the horizon of how we're going to learn. And I think people on the front lines have to do the same thing. They just have to constantly, it's that constant feedback loop of a lot of those ISO principles. You do something, you evaluate it, you make a corrective action based on the results, and then you continue doing that again until you get what you need.
Yeah. Now, clearly, different manufacturers have different challenges. You do customized training?
We have standard training. We generally do not customize. But we do have over 3,000 courses, and I would say the vast majority are of interest to the manufacturing segment. So there's a lot of choice there. But we also are coming out with a feature that will allow our customers to augment our courses as well with material of their own. And they can also always, in our learning management system, upload their own content of lots of different kinds as well. So,
got it.
And that is very popular. Obviously, every manufacturing organization is a bit unique in some of the challenges and issues that they want to train on.
Yeah. Now, as you look to the future, what's coming up for you and for Vector Solutions?
I would say that, like almost everyone else, we are looking at AI. I don't think you can't. And we have used AI for a while. We use it a lot in our I had mentioned before how we translate a lot of our courses in multiple languages. So we do use it a lot for language translation. What we have found is a lot of times that translation, the AI is like a base, but then you need a human review. And so I think that's one of the things we found with AI, like no matter what you're doing, and the AI can help you save time and perhaps do some pretty interesting insights, you're still always going to need that human review. So I think we're looking at doing some innovative things with AI. Is on the agenda One of my favorite ones, which I would like us to get to, is if you have an incident and you're keeping track of that safety incident, that you can use an AI tool to help you recommend specific vector courses that would prevent you from having that incident again. That's been a pet project of mine for, I'm not going to say how long. So I would love to see it come to reality. But there's so many different ideas out there. I think the challenge is sort of for a company like Vector, and also for the workforce, is which of those ideas are really going to resonate and which ones can we actually implement. I think of it a lot like the AI analogy, a lot like the self-driving car, right? We're like 90% there to having cars that are self-driving, but like that 10% is super, super important, and 90% just isn't good enough. So that's a little bit how I think of AI. Like, if it can get us 90% of the way there, that's great, but we still have to have that 10%. We still have to figure out how to do the remaining 10%.
Yeah, makes sense. And then, are there any things companies should be thinking about looking to the future?
I do think some of the trends that we talked about earlier are probably going to accelerate, right? The skills gap, the generational divide, the continuing use of technology, the potential for continued extreme weather events and having the appropriate emergency response for that. The whole sustainability approach, which I think is tied into that. I do think those trends aren't going away. AI, I do think all of those will accelerate, and that's something organizations have to, make sure that they look at.
Yeah, and as you might imagine, the skilled gap is a constant discussion here. And one thing we talk about is automation taking its place, and that obviously brings its own safety concerns.
Exactly right, because you need to make sure that it's safe, and when the automation fails, do you still know what to do and how to fix it, and how to keep going. It's very similar, I guess, also to the cell phone analogy, that I somehow had a life before I had a cell phone. which I'm sure the younger generation of today cannot even compute and imagine, but we survived. Exactly. So I think there is going to be definitely the skills gap is real, but there's so much interesting things that you can do with technology as well that maybe we'll solve our way around that too.
Right. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I just really want to thank you for the opportunity. I always love talking about safety and manufacturing, and I really, thank you so much for having me on the show and having this great conversation.
Glad to do it. Yeah, I mean, people safety is job one out there. So thank you, Claire, for being here and sharing your thoughts. And I'll make sure we include a link to your study in the show description, so folks can look that up.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It is such a good study. Super excited to share the results with everyone.
Excellent. And then there'll also be a link to Vector Solutions. If you guys need help out there, Claire's ready to help you out.
Absolutely.
Yep, good. And of course, as always, thanks to you in the audience. You're why we're here, and we'll be here every Tuesday. This one was exceptionally informative on a very important topic. I can't promise everything's going to be as important a topic as this one, but they're all important. So join us next Tuesday, and we'll have another show for you. Thanks again. So long from Manufacturing Talks.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.